Hello again, everybody. I'm Chris Mooneyham, and welcome to the TCA All Sports Report. As always, brought to you by Fox 5 Atlanta, 680 The Fan, and of course, the Touchdown Club of Atlanta. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Got a long first segment to get into. We crowned multiple state champions across the state. Well, just two sports, guys and girls tennis, and of course, girls track and field this week down in Albany. So without further ado, let's find out what's happening. Well, it was a terribly interesting day down in Albany this past weekend. I was very fortunate to be on the play-by-play call of the 2015 GHSA Ladies State Track and Field Championships. The temperatures were up and the times were down. We had 4 state records fall down in Albany this week. Your state champions overall, team state champions now: Westlake, North Springs, Marist, Maynard Jackson of Atlanta, Lovett, Our Lady of Mercy, and Georgia Military College, all one-team titles. One more time: Westlake, North Springs, Marist, Maynard Jackson, Lovett, OLM, and GMC, all win team titles. For Westlake, that's 3 straight, and the first time the team in the highest classification has won 3 consecutive titles since Collins Hill did it in, I think, 06 through 08, maybe 05 through 07. I'll guarantee you that one of those two numbers is right. North Springs wins the 5A championship. They edged out north side of Warner Robins, took the lead with just a few races to go, and held on to it. One big reason why: Micaiah Ransby. She won the 400-meter race and finished second in the 200-meter. Maynard Jackson, as I mentioned, wins the 4A championship, but also provided us with the big-time emotional moment of the weekend. Maynard Jackson knew going into the final race of the day, the 4x400-meter relay, or the 1600-meter relay, if you prefer to look at it that way, knowing they needed no worse, or no better at least, just needed a 3rd or 4th place finish to win the overall team championship, which would be quite an accomplishment for this school, which has only won 2 championships, or one other championship in their school's history. And that came all the way back when they weren't even called Maynard Jackson. They were still Southside in those days, and James Forrest was leading them to a basketball championship. But they did not only finish better than 3rd in that final race, they won that race. And it set off this really great emotional scene where you had multiple parents and coaches crying in the crowd. Our cameras at the NFHS network were able to catch this large pocket of Maynard Jackson supporters right down on the track, celebrating and hugging each other and crying. I mean, one of the coaches was absolutely boo-hooing. I mean, he was really boo-hooing. And then as you kind of fanned out and checked out the rest of the crowd, you saw little pockets of Maynard Jackson supporters that were also getting emotional about the success of their team here in 2015. It was really quite a sight. Marist, in the, I believe I said just a moment ago, Maynard Jackson won the 4A title. Obviously, Maynard Jackson won the 3A title. I misspoke. Pardon me for that. Marist won the 4A title. They had a 30-plus point lead going into the final day of action from the field into the track, and they had to hold on for that victory. Their victory at one point was taken all the way down to 5 points. Baldwin was within striking distance, but Marist wins ends up holding on to the 4A title. Meanwhile, Lovett, OLM, and GMC all win in dominant team fashion. The story of the track and field meet, however, was Miss Candace Hill, the sophomore from Rockdale County. Now, last year, you may remember, Candace Hill set the national track and field world on fire. As a freshman, she set state records, winning the state titles in the 100-meter and 200-meter races. This year, she did herself one better, breaking her own records in both of those races, yet again winning the state championships. I kind of joked during the broadcast that NBC better get their montage music ready because this lady, their Olympic montage music ready, because I'm telling you, in all seriousness, this is not broadcaster hyperbole to say that this young lady has every opportunity. She's got special written all over and potential Olympics written all over her as well. For further details on the championships, you can visit ghsa.net for further details, and of course tap some of the major media providers here in the state. Locally, AJC has a pretty good summary of the state track and field championships. On to tennis now, where Walton won both the girls and boys 6A state titles. For the girls, it's 13 out of the last 15 state titles. Absolutely unbelievable, regardless of gender or sport. One of the great dominant runs in this state's history. 5A, Stars Mill had a chance at the double A as well. Unfortunately, they come away 0 for 2. Cambridge wins on the ladies' side, Lakeside of Evans on the boys' side. 4A, both Marist and St. Pius won state titles last year on the boys' side. Because of reclassification, they're now both at the 4A level. So it was a mega matchup between rivals and defending state champions. Well, Marist comes away with a 3-0 victory, but 3-0 doesn't tell the story of this match. It was nip and tuck the entire way. On the ladies' side, Woodward Academy beats Buford for that 4A title. 3A, Blessed Trinity's girls prevail 3-2 in a tight match with Westminster and win their seventh consecutive title. Westminster's boys beat Calhoun 3-2 and win their 5th consecutive title. So 3A, all about championship win streaks. 2A, Wesleyan girls win their first title since 2001. They beat Lovett. GAC beats region foe Pace Academy 3-1, and they win their first title since 2008. 1A private, the Stratford Academy boys, a highly decorated GISA program, makes the jump to GHSA, and they win a state title. Congratulations to them. Athens Academy's girls beat Brookstone. They win their 10th overall team championship and their first since 2010. And finally, 1A public now. Taylor County wins the guys championship 3-2 over Drew, and Irwin County wins their 2nd consecutive state championship with the win over Baconton Charter. Coming up next in the Ever Wonder portion of our program, we talk about one of the great Georgians and great Ramblin' Wreck men of all time. Kim King was born in 1945, and immediately, as a young man, he represented everything that the city of Atlanta stood for. He was hardworking, he was driven, he was intense, and he was right in the middle of a burgeoning metroplex, a metropolis, the metropolis that was the busy, bustling city of Atlanta. He was, and I can truly appreciate this, a man who loved his home city. In 1959, he enrolled in Brown High School. And as a freshman, well, first of all, let's back up and remember what Brown High School was in those days. As Brad Walsh likes to point out to us, Brad Walsh, our resident historian at the TCA, who puts together the Ever Wonder portion of our program every week, he says, and I quote now, to put it bluntly, Brown High School was mediocrity defined. Some years above 500, some years below, but for the most part, they were right at 500. As a sophomore, King won the starting quarterback position, and that year, the Rebels finished the year at 1-8-1. So that was, well, one of the worst years that they had in their history. Then came their junior season, his junior season, where the Rebels did a complete 180 and finished the year at 9-1. Now all of a sudden, one of the great years in program history. Not just one of the great years in program history, but Kim King had one of the great years for a quarterback in the history of this state up to that point. He finished his junior season with 1,204 yards and 19 passing touchdowns. Pardon me. That, of course, a big number in those days. But this is incredible. Kim King, in his junior season of 1961, finished the year as All-City and All-State in football, baseball, and basketball. Then came his senior year. In that senior year, Brown fell right back into the pattern that so many had grown accustomed to. They finished the year at 6-4. And that year, Kim, well, he broke his own passing records. He went for 1,233 in that senior season and threw for 20 touchdowns. He was deemed by all the newspapers in Atlanta as the king of the quarterbacks. His exploits on the football field and the diamond and, of course, the hard courts garnered him national attention. He had offers for Major League Baseball scouts, from college basketball programs, and, of course, from some of the preeminent football programs across the country. Just as a sample, Southern California, Notre Dame, and, of course, many of the preeminent programs in the South. But Kim King's heart, well, it belonged to the city of Atlanta, and he ended up turning his attention and playing for Bobby Dodd in the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. He had a great career at Georgia Tech. They won a lot of games at Georgia Tech, and of course, he had a fine career where he was dubbed the young left-hander by the legendary Georgia Tech broadcaster Al Seraldo. But as important as his playing days are, and that's of course what we focus on a lot here in the All Sports Report, his impact on the city of Atlanta and the state and really the Southeast after his athletic days really just as important. This is a guy that a lot of you out there may not know, especially some of you younger guys who aren't into history. Of course, a lot of you older folks out there will remember. Kim King had a great influence on many facets of life in Atlanta. Finance, politics, of course sports, but just a litany of impactful moments for Kim King as a businessman after his playing days. He is quite simply a legend in the city of Atlanta, not just athletically. But let's take a look at some of the accolades that he's received since his playing days. He's a member of the Georgia Tech Hall of Fame, the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame. He was named as one of Georgia Tech's 50 greatest athletes of the 20th century. He, of course, won the Georgia Tech Total Person Alumnus Award. And as many of you know out there, he spent some time working with Al Seraldo as a color commentator on the radio broadcasts for Georgia Tech football. He was a founder of Kim King Associates Incorporated, who built the Synergy Complex in Midtown and numerous other major complexes across Atlanta, the state of Georgia, and the Southeast. He was at one point the finance chairman for Governor Roy Barnes' gubernatorial campaign. He was chairman for the Georgia Public Broadcasting Company, and for a short time, he was the president of the Touchdown Club of Atlanta. In 2004, Kim King unfortunately lost his battle with leukemia and passed away at the age of 58. Donald Kimbrough King is a legend in Atlanta and a legend in the state of Georgia. And of course, he was the Touchdown Club of Atlanta's Back of the Year in 1962. When he was asked late in his life what would be the one regret that you could point to from any point in your life, he said, and he answered this quickly, by the way. He said, if I had one regret, it would be that in my 3 years as a starting quarterback for Georgia Tech, not once did we beat the University of Georgia. What a great answer from a great man in the history of Atlanta and the state of Georgia. Perhaps, arguably, the most exciting week in the state of Georgia athletically as far as high school athletics go. Just an amazing week. In the beginning of the week, we'll have semifinals for lacrosse boys and girls, for soccer boys and girls, and for 1A baseball. And it all leads to the ultimate, or penultimate if you prefer, end of the week performance. On Saturday, we'll have the 1A baseball state championships, or at least a doubleheader. And if they need a game 3, they'll play that next Monday. Also on Saturday, the lacrosse state championships for boys and girls in the 2 classifications. And that'll be the end of a couple of 3-day affairs that are absolutely dramatic as well. Thursday the 14th through Saturday the 16th, we'll have the boys state track and field championships live on the NFHS network from Jefferson, Georgia. I'll be on the play-by-play with Matt Day on Saturday. Then, at the same time, Thursday the 14th through Saturday the 16th, we'll have the GHSA Soccer State Championships taking place down in Macon on the Mercer University campus. I'll be on the play-by-play for the first 2 days of that championship affair with Justin Hanover from the Atlanta Silverbacks, and then on Saturday, Brian Katrick and Scott Janovitz will take over the play-by-play duties. Again, early in the week, semifinals all over the place. End of the week, Saturday, 1A baseball and lacrosse will crown their state champions. And then Saturday will be the conclusion of 2 great 3-day affairs. We'll crown state champions in boys track and field Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And, of course, what's turning into one of the great atmospheres in all of Georgia high school athletics, this state really embracing soccer in a major way. Thursday we'll crown state champions. Friday we'll crown state champions. And Saturday as well down in Macon on the Mercer University campus. Most of this, if not all of this, again, you'll be able to catch live at ghsa.tv or on the NFHS network /Georgia. Coming up next, I try my darndest to not offend my alma mater. Some numbers for you if you don't mind. These are season totals now. 8, 3, 3, 6, and now finally back to double-digit wins in a season. In a season for an NCAA basketball team at a major university in a major metropolitan city, NCAA basketball, with over 30,000 students. Well, now anyway, with over 30,000 students. But over the last few years with 23 to 25,000 students. I'm speaking of the season win totals for Kennesaw State University. 8, 3, 3, 6, and then this year back to double digits. Those are the win totals for Kennesaw State's basketball team since 2010-2011. All that money, all that glitz and glamour and fame that's fallen upon Kennesaw State over the last few years. Now, I must tell you all out there, in the interest of full disclosure, I am a Kennesaw man, a guy who loves Kennesaw State University, who has at one point or another been linked to the university every single year since 1992. My mother was a student there. I was a student there a couple of times. I graduated from Kennesaw State. I broadcast for Kennesaw State for 8 years. I worked at the campus bookstore. I worked at the off-campus bookstore. I drove a government car at Kennesaw State University and delivered beverages for the university. I've cut commercials for the school. I've done all sorts of things for Kennesaw State University. So let me get that out of the way by saying I am a corporate man, a Kennesaw man who loves that university. But I must tell you, over the last week, with the hiring of Al Skinner, a very well-known, very highly thought of, and very well-respected head coach in the NCAA basketball ranks, many people have thrown their hands up in the air in celebration, while others have thrown their hands up in the air and said, oh no, this is not as good a hire as you may think. Now think about Kennesaw State again, coming off 8-3-3-6 wins in a year, and now finally this year reaching double-digit wins for the first time since 2009-2010. You hire a big-name head coach to come in, and because that's what you need. You need the exposure. You've got to raise your name inside the state of Georgia, because after all, we're dealing with 16, 17, and 18-year-old kids. But the problem is, according to many people inside the media across the country who know how Coach Al Skinner, have covered him for a living, they say that that's just the problem, because Skinner will not get out and recruit the way he needs to in an effort to rebuild a program. And let's be frank, just because the Owls got back to double-digit wins for the first time since, again, 2009-2010, that doesn't mean that they're on the uptick. Skinner's stepping into a situation where numerous kids have either graduated, been kicked off of, or straight left the KSU basketball program. The hire has been questioned. Vaughn Williams has been questioned, and God knows he's taking a lot of fire right now for a number of reasons. Financial reasons. Nitra Perry, the girls basketball coach, is being accused of abusing her players. Vaughn has been non-committal on a lot of these issues, and of course, many people are screaming nepotism because he hired Nitra Perry. He's now hiring Al Skinner, and of course, his first hire was Lewis Preston, who was the first man who took over the basketball team, all of which had direct ties at some point during their history with Vaughn Williams. Look, I'm not here to blast the hire, but what I am here to do is to ask the question, like so many people in the media have. Why is this the hire? If you're trying to rebuild the program, if you believe that the key to bringing back this program to its prominence when it was a national champion at the Division II level, and a dominant national champion at that in 2004, if you believe that we can get back there, or at least, be competitive, make a big dance in the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and this is the guy to do it, don't you think that recruiting's important? Because again, the bag on Skinner over the last 5, 6 years, as he was unceremoniously sent out of Boston College, where he had a great history, remember, Al Skinner was the coach of some really, really top-flight Boston College teams in the 1990s and early 2000s. But he was let go without much fanfare and without much thought about it, and certainly without much provocation. So they wondered why. Boston Globe's Bob Ryan, for instance, said it was because he was lacking on the recruiting trail. And in fact, over the last few years before he was let go, the only reason they had some success on the recruiting trail was because of his staff. You cannot hire a guy, if you're Kennesaw State in this situation, who's not going to be effective on the recruiting trail. In fact, it may be more important for you to hire a great recruiter as a head coach as opposed to a guy who is very, very good with the X's and O's. And I know how that sounds, but you can always get a young coach who you know can identify with the young people in the state of Georgia, a basketball talent-rich state, Metro Atlanta, obviously a hotbed for future college basketball and pro talent. Get that guy in here, get him to recruit well, and let him work on his X's and O's as he gets better as a coach in the college game. I'm not going to sit here and blast KSU. I'm not going to blast Vaughn Williams or, of course, Al Skinner. But the question does deserve to be raised. Is this the right move when you're trying to rebuild a program? Because one other thing that's been questioned about Al Skinner is his heart, his motivation. Does he have the energy in his middle to late 60s to continue on this fight? The fight that's needed in rebuilding a program. Because after all, after 8, 3, 3, and 6 wins before this past season, God knows that that's how kids will see your program. And as we all know, you've got to impress a 16, 17, and 18-year-old in 2015 if you want to get him to come to your program. Until next week, I'm Chris Mooneyham for the TCA All Sports Report.